Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. On today's tutorial, I will demonstrate how to cut and sew a cowl neck dress. I drafted the pattern for this in a previous tutorial. The link to the pattern drafting tutorial will be above and in the description box below. Hi, my name is Ayo and welcome to 011 Clothing Tutorials. On this channel, I upload DIYs, pattern drafting and sewing tutorials. If you haven't subscribed yet, kindly do so and do not forget to turn on the notification bell so that you will be notified whenever I upload a new video. So now, let's get right into the tutorial. Thank you! I'll be working with the following items: tape measure, pins, water erasable fabric pencil, a pair of fabric scissors, a pair of paper scissors, a matching thread, a matching long zip, 2 yards of lining fabric, 2 1/2 yards of crepe fabric, a matching color of bias tape, some interfacing, the pattern pieces which I drafted in a previous tutorial. The link to the pattern drafting tutorial will be above and in the description box below. These are the pattern pieces needed to make the dress. This is the front cowl bodice pattern. A single piece of it will be cut on fold on the bias grain. This is the back bodice pattern. 2 pieces will be cut on the straight grain. This is the initial front skirt pattern. A single piece will be cut on fold on the lining fabric. This is the back skirt pattern. 2 pieces will be cut on the straight grain on both the main fabric and the lining fabric. This is the front skirt pattern. A single piece will be cut out on the main fabric. I will slash and spread it out on the fabric. I will start with the front skirt piece. I have already laid out a single layer of fabric on the table with the right side of the fabric facing up. I will slash the slash lines, but I will not cut them all the way through at the hem of the skirt pattern. This side of the skirt that was not slashed, I will try as much as possible to align it with the selvage of the fabric. What I'm doing is to make sure that this side is cut out on the straight grain. I will pin it in place. I will open up the slashed sections at the top at the waistline by 2 inches each, and I will pin them in place. I will connect the top edge of the slash skirt pattern together like this. I will add 1 inch seam allowance at the side seam, half inch seam allowance at the waistline at the top edge, and 1 inch seam allowance at the hem. I will cut it out. I will notch the exact positions of the pleats on the fabric like this. I have already pinned the back skirt pattern onto my fabric. The fabric has been folded into 2 layers, right sides together. I used half an inch seam allowance at the top edge, half an inch seam allowance around the vent, 1 inch seam allowance at the side seam and also at the hem. I will cut it out. I did not add any seam allowance to the center back because we already have a 1 inch zip allowance at the center back. This is the back bodice. I used half an inch seam allowance all around the pattern except for the side seam where I used 1 inch seam allowance. I did not add any seam allowance to the center back because there is already a 1 inch zip allowance at the center back. I will notch the dart position. I have my fabric here on the table. I will fold the fabric on bias in a triangular way like this. I will place the front bodice, its center front, along the folded edge of the fabric like this. I will pin it in place. I have gone ahead to add half an inch seam allowance all around the pattern, except for the side seam where I used 1 inch seam allowance. I will cut it out. I will notch the positions of the shoulder pleats. I will not line the front bodice of this dress. I will reduce the seam allowance around the armhole area of the front bodice to 1/4 of an inch. This is because I will finish off the armhole of the front bodice with a bias tape. This is because I will not line the front bodice of the dress. This is the back bodice. This is the back skirt piece. And this is the original front skirt piece. I will go ahead and cut these 3 pieces on the lining fabric. This is the front bodice that was cut on the bias grain, and as I mentioned earlier on, I will not line it. I will remove the pattern from the fabric like this. Make sure to notch the points where the neckline facing starts from on both sides of the shoulders before removing the pattern. I will now go ahead and pin the shoulder pleats in place on both shoulders. Recall that I have already notched the pleat positions. The pleats should be pleated towards the neckline of the bodies on both shoulders. They must face the same direction, which is towards the neckline. None of the shoulder pleats should face the armhole. I will stitch the pleats in place about 1/4 of an inch away from the edge of the fabric. Next, I will overlock the hem of the facing. Then I will fold it over once by half an inch and I will stitch it in place. At this point, you should have already notched the points where the neckline facing starts from on the shoulders. I have already stitched the pleats in place, as you can see. I will now go ahead and use this bias tape to finish the armholes of the bodies. This is because the front bodies will not be lined. So now that has been done, as you can see, I have finished the armholes of the bodies using a bias tape. I have also hemmed the neckline facing. I have given the armhole and the neckline facing a thorough press with my iron. These are the back body spaces. I have here 2 pieces cut on the main fabric and 2 pieces cut out on the lining fabric. I have already interfaced the necklines and the armholes of the 2 back lining pieces on the wrong sides. And I have already notched the dart positions on all the back pieces. I will now go ahead and sew the darts in place on all the back body spaces on the main fabric and the lining fabric as well. So now I have gone ahead to sew the darts in place, as you can see. I will now place the 2 back pieces on top of the 2 back lining pieces like this, right side to right side. I will sew the necklines in place using half an inch sewing allowance. So now the stitching has been done, as you can see. After stitching, I notched the seam allowance. I understitch the seam allowance to the neckline of the lining fabric. With the right sides of the fabric and the lining together, I will go ahead and sew the armholes in place using half an inch sewing allowance on both back pieces. So now the stitching has been done, as you can see. After stitching, I notched the seam allowances at the armhole. And then I understitched the seam allowance to the armhole of the lining fabric. With the right sides of the main fabric and the lining together, I will go ahead and sew the side seams and the center back in place using half an inch sewing allowance. So now the stitching has been done, as you can see, and I've given the two back pieces a thorough press with my pressing. This is the front skirt piece. I have already notched the positions of the 5 pleats on the fabric. I will now remove the pattern from the fabric like this. I will pin the 5 pleats in place like this. After pinning, I will stitch down the pleats at the top about 1/4 of an inch away from the edge of the fabric. So now the stitching has been done, as you can see. This is the front lining. I made the front lining 2 inches shorter than the actual length of the front pattern. I will remove the pattern from the fabric. I will first of all overlock the hem of this lining piece. After doing the overlocking, with the right sides of the lining and the main skirt piece together, I will sew the side in place using 1/2 an inch sewing allowance. As you can see, I have overlocked the hem of the lining and I've sewn the lining and the main fabric together at the side seams using 1/2 an inch sewing allowance. I will turn it to the right side. So I will secure the main fabric and the lining together at the waistline, about 1/4 of an inch away from the edge of the fabric. This is the front bodice. We will sew this to the skirt at the waistline. I have used 1/2 an inch seam allowance on both sides to fix the lining and the main skirt pieces together. So the bodice is now bigger than the skirt. So I will trim off about 1/2 an inch seam allowance on both sides of the bodice like this. After trimming, I will overlock the raw edge at the sides. So now I have overlocked the side seams of the bodice. Next, I will notch the middle points on both the bodice and the skirts. I will now place the skirt on top of the bodice, right sides together. I will align the waistlines of the two pieces, making sure that the middle points match up. I will pin them together. After pinning, I will take them to my sewing machine and I will stitch them in place using 1/2 an inch sewing allowance. So now the stitching has been done, as you can see. After stitching, I went ahead to overlock the raw edges. These are the back skirt pieces, which I have cut out on the main fabric and also on the lining fabric. I will notch the dart positions. I will mark the wrong side of the fabric. I made the back lining 2 inches shorter than the length of the back skirt pattern. I will go ahead and sew the waist darts in place on the 4 skirt pieces. I have sewn the waist darts in place, as you can see. These are the 2 pieces. I will place them on the main fabric pieces like this, right side to right side. I have already sewn the darts in place, as you can see. I have also overlocked the ends of the 2 lining pieces. I will now go ahead and sew the lining to the main fabric like this using 1/2 an inch sewing allowance. I will do the same thing on the second skirt piece as well. So now the stitching has been done, as you can see. I have snipped this corner on the 2 skirt pieces. I will turn the skirt pieces to the right side, and then I will go ahead and give the 2 skirt pieces a thorough press with my pressing iron. So now I have done the pressing, as you can see. These are the two back bodice pieces, also already thoroughly pressed. I will place the bodies on top of the skirt, right side to right side. I will pin them in place, making sure that the dart legs match up. After pinning, I will take them to my sewing machine and I will stitch them in place using 1/2 inch sewing allowance. So now the stitching has been done, as you can see, and I have gone ahead to overlock the raw edges. I will now place the two back pieces together like this, right side to right side. First, I will pin the waistlines together at the center back like this. Next, I will measure and mark 6 inches below the waistline at the center back. This is where I want the zip to end at the center back. You can come further down by about 7 inches below the waistline, especially if you are working with a very curvy client. From these 6-inch points, I will measure and mark 1/2 inch downwards like this. Recall that we have already used 1/2 inch out of the 1 inch zip allowance to sew the lining and the main fabric together at the center back. I will sew the center back in place like this using 1/2 inch sewing allowance. So now the stitching has been done, as you can see. I will remove this pin from the waistline, and this is what it looks like on the right side. This top edge of the back vent, I will have to stitch it down on the right side of the fabric like this. The stitching will be done about 4 to 5 times so as to secure the back vent firmly in place. Next, I will measure and mark about 1/2 inch seam allowance on both sides of the center back, starting from the neckline down to where the center back opening ends. I will now go ahead and fix it to the center back of the dress, following the guidelines that I've already marked on the fabric. So now I have already fixed the zip to the center back, as you can see. When sewing the bodies to the skirt and also the zip to the center back, make sure that the waistline seams match up, and also the dart legs should also match up. This excess zip tape at the neckline, I will fold it back like this and I will stitch it down. I will now place the front piece on top of the back piece like this, right side to right side. At this point, you must have notched the points where the neckline facing starts from on the shoulders. I will now place the front and the back shoulders like this, right side to right side. I will wrap the front neckline facing around the back shoulders like this, and I will pin the shoulders in place. After pinning, I will take it to my sewing machine and I will stitch it in place using 1/2 inch sewing allowance. So now the stitching has been done, as you can see, and I have overlocked the raw edges at the shoulders. I will now go ahead and sew the side seams of the dress in place using 1/2 inch sewing allowance. I will also hem the lower part of the dress. So now that has been done, as you can see, I have sewn the side seams of the dress and I have hemmed the lower part of the dress. I have also given the entire dress a thorough press with my pressing iron. So that's it guys, we are done, and this is the final look of the cowl front dress on my dress form. If you find this video helpful, do not forget to give it a thumbs up, drop a comment down below, share this video with your friends who are interested in sewing, and do not forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. See you in my next tutorial. Bye, and thank you so much for watching.